So what is a refugee? A refugee is a person who has had to flee their own country, so they have crossed an official border into another country to flee war and any threats to their lives and well-beings and their livelihood.
The Global Compact for Refugees is an agreement by the world's countries to come together to do more to help the more than 65 million displaced people around the world, particularly those who are refugees, those who have had to move across borders for their safety and security. It's a recognition that most of the world's refugees are in some of the poorest countries of the world, and those of us in wealthy parts of the world have a role to play in helping those countries to fulfill the rights, desires, and aspirations of the world's refugees.
An IDP is very similar to a refugee in that they've had to flee their home for reasons beyond their control, often violence, conflict, a loss of livelihoods, or really a threat to their safety. The difference between an IDP and a refugee is that they have not crossed an international border, so they are still within their own country. They might be very far from their home in a completely different part of their own country, a part they might not know, where they might not have family or anything that they recognize or know, but because they haven't crossed into a different country, they are known as IDPs.
Economic migration is migration due to economic factors, where the person is looking for better job opportunities or better income. So, for example, any one person leaving Canada for a better job in Europe, for example, would be an economic migrant.
Survival migration is a challenging situation where people have to leave their home countries because life in their own country just isn't tenable for them anymore. It's different from a refugee because it means they don't meet the legal status of refugee, which often means that they're personally targeted. When we talk about survival migration, it really means countries where the state is really unable to help people within the country. They might not have access to proper health care, to economic opportunities, and they're really in a desperate situation where they have to move to be able to provide for their families. We're seeing these days there's a lot of causes of survival migration, for example, linked to climate change. So if you're living in a country where you've had crops every year fail because there weren't sufficient rains, you will likely have to choose to move to a different place to be able to help your family survive, and sometimes that involves crossing a border into another country.
Why did I look at her?
What am I getting at?
The binding document, that's too technical too.
We only stay here for the bloopers.
I don't like this.
That's a blooper.